Hey everyone! Welcome back to another episode of This Week at Work. Yeah, this is going to be a bit unusual episode of This Week at Work. If you haven't already noticed,
I'm here.
What are you doing here?
I was in the neighborhood.
You're just in my neighborhood.
I was in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's a lovely neighborhood too, by the way.
I know, and we was just looking. It's been like 5-6 years since you were last in the old studio.
Yeah.
It's crazy. How you been?
Well, I grew a beard.
You grew a beard.
We've started a new show.
You're just showing me off. Like now you just make me. I just look stupid.
Well, now I'm taller. I have more facial hair. I was already more intelligent, so I've got the trifecta.
Oh, what do I actually bring to the table in this relationship?
The accent.
Just as it.
That's all you bring.
And the mics.
And the mics. And this couch.
And the couch.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, so we are actually in my house at the end of my garden.
Yes.
Sitting here. The reason Matt's actually, on a serious note, the reason Matt's in the building is we just got back from hosting the HR Innovation Roundtable at Lego in Denmark, which Matt did an absolutely amazing job.
I'm still shaking.
You're still shaking?
It was incredible.
So Matt emceed the event. So it was actually amazing. It's the first time I've actually let go of the reins of not being the moderator for our events. And honestly, you did an amazing job. But tell everyone the trials and tribulations you had to go through.
Well, before we
get there. Keep the mic in
there,
front of your mouth, by the way. Yeah.
just before we get there, I think it's important to point out that I actually gave you a virus so that you would take a step back. The only way to get you
to release, why I got sick?
Yes. The only way that you'd actually release the reins is because you got deathly ill. So what happened, Chris, as you know, was we had an event scheduled for Monday afternoon.
Yeah.
So I'm hopping on a plane on Saturday, thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to leave Saturday from Canada, fly across the Atlantic, land in Denmark, get there Sunday evening, plenty of time. I'm going to have a really good sleep, get up in the morning, have a breakfast, go for a walk in the woods, maybe meet up for a bit. And then we have the rest of the day to just get ready for the show.
Yeah.
Well, as luck would have it, the weather didn't want to cooperate in Canada.
No.
We were delayed by close to 24 hours. So I hopped on a plane the next day, flew directly from Toronto to London, caught a cab from Heathrow to Stansted, the other airport, caught a flight from Stansted up to Billund, changed in the bathroom on the plane for the event, landed in Stansted, hopped in a cab, 10 minutes, walked in the front door, see your face, we're on in 5 minutes.
Yeah,
and
literally.
The show must go on.
It's funny because I was sitting there terrified because I'd mentally not prepared myself to host. If anyone who's listening, if you ever hosted a conference or an event, there's a build up, right? You kind of research the speakers, the attendees. I know all the attendees and I know the topics, but I wasn't mentally prepared. And when Shane was like, Matt might not make it, I was pretty stressed. I'm not gonna lie. So when you walked in, and I was not feeling well, and when you walked in the room, I was like, oh, thanks so much. But
now, I was thinking, I've had 45 minutes of sleep. I'm horribly jet lagged. I'm horribly jet lagged.
Yeah.
But the look on your face told me that I had no other option. The show must go on.
I was fine. I would have been all right for the first. I would have been fine to do it. But yeah, you stepped up. You stepped up and made it happen. But how was your experience?
It was incredible. Yeah. I think about
the second HR leaders event, actually.
Second. I mean, because of you, I've seen some pretty cool places. The first one was in Zurich.
Yeah.
And that was an incredible event at Swiss Re.
Yeah, it was cool.
In Zurich. And I don't know if anything could beat that. And then I come to Lego's head office and my head is swiveling around looking at this facility.
Yeah.
80 plus, close to 80 HR leaders in the room from some of the world's most leading brands.
Yeah.
CHROs, EVPs and SVPs of analytics. And they just came to the event with a willingness to share their perspectives, to be really vulnerable and talk about some of the challenges that they're having, and really solutions oriented. So over the course of a day and a half, I learned an absolute ton in between the sessions, the breakout rooms. We had a couple of really nice meals along the way. It was an incredible experience. I'm still honestly trying to ingest all of it. Yeah. But looking forward to spending some time on the plane back just to kind of make sense of it all and hopefully to have a summary next week.
I think you're just going to pass out on the plane. You're going to So I think what I loved, there's so many great takeaways from the event. Obviously, firstly, massive thank you if any of our friends from Lego are listening right now. Unbelievable hosts, Melissa Cantor, Lauren, all of the team actually at the Lego group. I don't think I'd ever leave.
No.
I think if I worked at the Lego group, I'd just stay there.
Did you see the Bugatti?
Yeah.
The thing is made of Lego. It has an electric engine and it actually can be driven.
Well, just everything, like the Lego, like just the whole, you can really see how learning through play has manifested itself in the culture and the physical
Yes.
workspace.
It's just welcoming. It
just
makes you feel like you want to work there.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't hurt that it's got great food.
Amazing food.
Got their own on-site hotel for the employees, Lego house.
Yes.
As well to stay. So absolutely amazing. And for us, after nearly 4 years without seeing everyone face to face, it's kind of surreal to see everyone in person. Actually, it's funny because I would say about 80% of the HR executives that joined us are in different companies.
Yeah.
Since we last met 4 years ago.
Yep.
Like I was meeting everyone that's previously been, and I'm like, hey, oh, you're in a different company, or you're here, you're there, as well. And the world itself, and talk about the future of work. Future of work's now.
Yeah.
It's changed dramatically.
Same people, same challenges, different companies. We're all going through the same collective challenge when it comes to the future of work, and that's why events like that are so important. Big thanks to our partners at Visier as well for making it all happen. Like without the folks there, we wouldn't be able to make that support. Yeah.
You just think about 4 or 5 years ago, we wasn't really having real in-depth conversations around things like people analytics. It wasn't, it was on the agenda, obviously, but where we are now, we're kind of leapfrogged light years into the future.
Well, Chris, 25% of the attendees were CHROs. If that isn't a signal as to how important analytics are for the HR practice, I don't know what is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the context for everyone listening. We had a big focus on people analytics for the event, obviously partnering with the premier platform in people analytics, in Visier. But our main interest was the CHROs really wanted to sit down with the people analytics leaders and that collaboration. Many of the CHROs came with their counterpart, with their VP of people analytics. And that was a real good sign for me to see that they're both in the room, dedicated, and they actually took the time out. Yeah. Because a lot of the leaders, we're all busy. We're all like, there's always a million things to do, but it's so important to take the opportunity to step away sometimes and just network, benchmark, be vulnerable, be challenged. One of the things that I loved about the event was seeing different leaders, different perspectives and insights, and the diversity of thought in the room. You've got different cultural diversity. You've got people from different companies and that you've never even heard of, but you've got 50,000 employees. Different challenges there, and it's nice. I spoke to a couple of the leaders. Said, Chris, I was like, what was your favorite part of the event? And they're like, actually being challenged. It's not often as a CHRO that someone comes up to me, Chris, and says, actually, have you thought about doing it this way? Or have you looked at it from this angle, this perspective? Why are you not involving X, Y, and Z people in the process? And they're like, oh, okay.
Well, and for the VPs of analytics, these are deep functional experts.
Yeah.
Usually in their organizations, the smartest person in the room when it comes to the strategy around analytics. So to have peers across industry from around the world say, this is what we're doing at organizations like Siemens or HSBC. So you get that best practice that you may not be able to receive internally when you're heading up an analytics practice. People defer to you for your knowledge. So to have that opportunity to share best practice, it's absolutely invaluable.
Yeah. As the MC of the event, what would you say is your key takeaways that you took from hearing in the conversations and all of the discussions?
That the technology has really advanced. So it's easier now for organizations to employ people analytics, but the problems are exactly the same. It's stakeholder alignment, it's change management, and it's understanding what problems are we trying to solve. So the tools are better, which is amazing, but the problems are very
weird,
similar.
Isn't it? It hasn't changed.
From when I was a CHRO, same challenges. How do we get executive alignment around the people analytics agenda?
Yeah.
How do you build the business case for change? How do you support a mandate by quantifying things that traditionally haven't been quantifiable? So traditionally as a CHRO, we would go into a boardroom, go into an executive meeting, and I wouldn't have the information. I have to make a case around qualitative arguments. Now I have that data. And I thought that would make it easier, but it doesn't. It actually, you have the data now, but you have to tell a story around the data to make it in a compelling way. So it's interesting to see how far we've come, but also how far we still have to go.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the points I saw that was raised was now we've got too much data to the point where we sort of have analysis paralysis, where more, and then did you hear that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you remember this, but about 4 years ago, you and I did a show, HR Leaders Live. And we had the venerable Dave Ulrich on the show. One of my heroes, one of your heroes as well. And we talked about this exact topic because Dave, of course, is steeped in decades of knowledge, generations of HR practices, and was really very much the architect of the HR business partner model. We talked about data, and I remember at the time talking about 3 adjectives. When it comes to data, you have to be able to synthesize, take the complex and make it simple. You have to be able to curate. You have to be able to pick what are you going to look at and what are you going to ignore. and you have to be able to tell really compelling stories.
Yeah.
That hasn't changed.
No, you're right, because that's one of the things that many of the people analytics leaders were focusing on. They really was trying to understand, how do we tell the story? You know, they know the data piece. They can tell you everything you want to know, but how do you translate that into a language where you can get that engagement, that buy-in as well, and also specifically focus on business issues, because you could go a million directions. And also, let's start, you got to get the data right in the first place.
Absolutely.
You know, there's no point doing any of that if you don't start from the foundations and build that solidly. So yeah, it was absolutely fascinating in the room. How did you get on there? I kind of I don't know if that's not really spoilers. We're gonna release a vlog on Monday where you can see some of the behind the scenes. But one of the great things as well is we had the opportunity to play together.
Yeah.
So we had a couple of games where you had to. Everyone in the room had, was it 30 seconds or 60 seconds to build a duck?
60 seconds.
60 seconds to build a Lego duck, which my one was terrible.
Yes.
And I had one eye facing this way, one eye facing that way. And the idea of it is like there's many ways to make a duck. The diversity and all, I think, how many skills was it they said you used?
24.
24 different skills you're using when building a Lego duck.
An 8-piece Lego duck.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. So we had some games there. And then we had an interesting game, which I thought was hilarious, is you had teams of 4 and you had a piece of paper and some pens and you had to draw the CHRO of the future. And that was really interesting.
It was.
To see what, and this is the key, you couldn't talk to each other. So you're not allowed to use any, like, literally, you can't talk. All of a sudden, you've met this person 10 minutes ago, or just your group, and all of a sudden now you've got to draw the CHRO of the future. And some of the things that we saw on my table was many arms. So in order to be a CHRO of the future, you're juggling multiple things. We saw a lot around, obviously, technology. I think the role of a CHRO is massively transformed to be more data focused. We saw things around empathy, well-being was a big one. What are some of the things that you saw?
Yeah, I was lucky because I was the MC. I had a chance to float around all the tables and get a sense of it. One image that sticks in my mind was an octopus. Yeah. So 8 arms, 8 tentacles moving around. Yeah. That was interesting. I also just thought from an HR perspective, what I was struck by was the dichotomy between holding 2 opposing thoughts. When I think about empathy, and I think about technology, those generally on a continuum around humanity are on opposite ends of the spectrum. Yeah, but the CHRO has to balance both.
That's a tough one.
Very tough.
Right, because we had a session, didn't we, around keeping the human in HR, and that was because we had the session was around talent analytics, but one of the points that kept coming up, this is all great, but some of these things aren't quantifiable, and we still have to make sure we focus on the human. And so it's like that balance, like you mentioned, we wouldn't even, in the past, we wouldn't be even having those 2 things in the same conversation.
Well, it also means translating the data into a human story. So I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Let's just say as an organization, you have 20% turnover. That means 1 out of every 5 of your employees won't be here at the end of the year. So you look at your team, maybe you have a team of 10 people. That means 2 people on average on your team won't be here this time next year.
Yeah.
When you think about it in those terms, that's significant. And when you see turnover at the macro level for an organization of 20,000 people, if the number jumps from 20 to 21, that's hundreds of people more than the previous year who are leaving the organization. And when you tell the story in that way, and you think about the impact of value and culture and the knowledge transfer that leaves when people leave the organization, it's absolutely critical that people are able to connect the numbers to the human side of business, because the numbers are a distillation. They synthesize what's happening in large sums of situations. And we have to understand the impact to the human side of the business. And that part, again, for CHROs, it's never been more challenging around that function.
Yeah. You've obviously, one of the things I love about our friendship and partnership is you've sat in the seat of a CHRO in many companies. What do you see as like the biggest challenge that's going to face CHROs in the next few years?
Well, I think it's not that much different than before. I think the war for talent, especially in North America, Western Europe, is heating up, and it's probably never been as challenging. Demographically speaking, the 20 years I've been in the profession, I remember hearing, well, the baby boomers will eventually leave the workforce and the millennials will have to pick it up. Yeah. Well, flash forward 20 years, we're here. And every single day, more people leave the workforce than enter it. So the actual total number of employees able to do the work is decreasing at a time when organizations are trying to grow and expand. You add into that, there's an increasingly large discrepancy between the skills that people need to have and what's currently in organizations. So you think about things like ChatGPT. How many of your HR team members are experts around AI? Not many, I'm guessing. That's going to be a skill required for all functions of HR going forward when it comes to writing job descriptions, creating training programs, using the technology around you. It's accelerating so quickly. How do you keep your team's skills up to date, both in the HR function, within the broader organization? That's a key piece. I think about the fact that Chris, it's 2023. We are still in the midst of a global pandemic. We're in our second recession in the course of the last, 15 years. It's challenging for organizations to maintain good fiscal responsibility. And generally speaking, HR is tasked with rationalizing fiscal results and embedding it in culture. The pressure is higher. The stakes have never been greater. I think about some of those things as being big challenges for CHRO. Here's the good thing. We have the skills to do this. We've been through these challenges before, and with events like the HR Leaders Innovation Summit, we can reach out to our peers to establish best practices so that we can share what's going on, learn from each other, and then apply those in real time in our organizations.
Yeah. I just want to mention you because I asked a couple of the CHROs as like in jest, how you getting on with ChatGPT? Surprisingly, a lot of them are using it.
Yeah.
They're like, Chris, one of them, I'm not going to mention who they are. They're like, I had an email this morning and I just threw it into ChatGPT and I just asked it to rewrite it. And so like, they're actually practically already using it in HR already. And now that ChatGPT have opened up the the API.
Yes.
I'm so excited to see how it's used in organizations as well. It's going to be really exciting. But fundamentally, the role of the CHRO is, you're right, the challenges are the same, but the skills that are required, there's been a big shift there.
And they're going to have to do with more with less. So they may have had a larger team, but that team is going to shrink and technology becomes part of the team. Data becomes part of the team. Artificial intelligence become part of the team. Expectations get greater. Human resources shrink. Technology has to fill in the gap. So we need to get into a more symbiotic state where we're no longer having conversations about analytics and technology, but rather culture. And analytics and the technology piece is just part of the conversation.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting. Tell everyone what you've been up to, Matt.
Well, I've moved recently, as you know.
You've moved. But what about personally? Obviously you're no longer a CHRO now. What are you up to? What's the plan for Matt?
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out, to be honest. I think about the pandemic. A lot of us had to pivot and ask ourselves, what do we want to do going forward? And I think I asked questions that a lot of people asked, which is, am I happy with my life design? Am I happy with where things are at in terms of the blend of work and life? And I ultimately landed on a place where I said, kind of. I had a really cool experience in 2020 working with Microsoft, pulling together a virtual reality conference. And we talked about it together. We brought 800 people under the same roof. Half of them were in virtual reality headsets. We brought 60 speakers over 3 days, all of them in virtual reality. That really lit a fire for me that was really interested in understanding what is the use of technology again to help enhance the human experience. And I think, Chris, what I would say is we're entering into an era now where no matter what the future looks like in a post-pandemic world, we're just simply not going to come together as much as possible. We're going to come together less than we did before. I even find in my own consulting practice, clients are asking me to be on site less than they did before. They're much more comfortable with a Zoom meeting or with a Slack conversation than before they would have insisted me to fly to the office, spend a week in the office having conversations. It was never super efficient, but it was the way all things were always done. Virtual reality to me is a halfway step in between. It's not the same as being in person, but it's a heck of a lot more compelling than a two-dimensional video on Zoom, a Slack message, a text message. So I think going forward, whatever that future looks like, it's going to include the intersection of virtual reality and HR, and that plan's still taking shape.
It's going to be exciting to see kind of, because when people talk about AI, it kind of comes and goes in waves. And there was some adoption, I think, around the time. I think you were, if I'm being honest, I feel like you were just too early. Sometimes you're too early. And I don't think there's still been enough work being done.
No.
In VR. Let us know in the chat. Would you be interested in attending a HR event in VR? Maybe we could do like a live VR event on LinkedIn as well. Our friends at Microsoft, if you're listening, you can give us all some headsets as well.
Well, I think the big challenge, Chris, is that traditionally in virtual reality, it's been the domain of technical and functional experts.
Yeah.
The individuals who are building the hardware, who are deep technologists, who are brilliant people, smarter than you and I. And What they are struggling with is translating that genius for an audience that doesn't understand how to write code in Unity, who doesn't understand the back-end technology required to make these things happen. And I see that as a role that I've played often. I mean, here's my dirty little secret. I'm actually not a deep technical expert in HR either. I've just been the person that gets buy-in from the executive team. I'm able to be a conduit between the organization and the senior leadership group. I'm able to translate messages back and forth so that people can galvanize change and ultimately leads to transformation. I see this pattern very much being similar in virtual reality. So I think my first starting point as we look at the balance of 2023 is, how do I share more knowledge about what is it? How do we use virtual reality more effectively? What are the use cases? What are organizations doing in this space? And I think that begins a conversation with folks. You know, Chris, I think about virtual reality. The biggest impediment to adoption is, until you put on the headset, I can tell you how great it is for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
You just won't properly understand.
You can't describe that. Yeah,
I can't describe the experience.
No.
The word I would best use probably is from a friend of mine, Caitlin Krause. And the word is wonder. You have a sense of wonder, a childlike play, very similar to what we experienced this week at Lego. And that to me is a feeling that you can't bottle up. But here's the proof point. Of the 60 speakers that spoke at the virtual reality event that we did in 2020, I think 55 of the 60 had never put on a VR headset before.
Oh, really?
Of the 55 who had not put on a virtual reality headset before, 15 of them ended up taking that technology and embedding it in their organizations.
Oh, really?
Because they had the firsthand experience.
They could feel it. I could see it.
They could feel it. They could see it. And those people are smart, and they understand that for things like recruitment and training and development and team building, the technology is really compelling. It allows you to bridge gaps that may exist because of geography or finances or disability that would otherwise not be possible unless you brought people together in the same room.
I was thinking, like, imagine at the event at Lego the other day during the roundtable discussions, if you had someone who could be put on a VR headset who's not in the room, and feel like they're part of that discussion.
Yes.
Feel like they're in the room, even though they're at home. That would be so cool.
And it's possible
to be able to do that.
Now, I wouldn't recommend someone does it for 8 hours. I wore a headset for 3 straight days.
Don't
and Chris,
do that.
I was dreaming in avatars for a week after that.
God.
But I think for an hour here and there, I think what I would say about VR is, I see a future where when someone joins an organization, they get a laptop, they get a cell phone, they get a virtual reality headset, which, by the way, is a quarter of the cost of an iPhone. You get that as someone's stack, and you use the technology in specific use cases where an individual meeting with other individuals would benefit from more of an intimate social interaction. I think about interviewing, I think about onboarding, I think about training, I think about performance management. I think about team building and collaboration, innovation sessions, brainstorming, anything where we generally prefer to be in the same room. Virtual reality can help bridge that gap for organizations, and we should use it for those use cases. But I would never advocate for someone to put a headset on and spend 8 hours sitting at their desk.
Or a headset on to be in a Zoom call.
Correct.
It's like, well, it's not really... One of the things that there's a couple of ideas that I'm working on at the moment. Actually, you probably shouldn't share them live on LinkedIn.
But you're going to.
But I'm going to anyway. I'm trying to do like a number of CHRO roundtables, but basically in the middle of the table, put a 360-degree camera.
Amazing.
So if you're watching one of our roundtable events, the audience at home, even if you don't even have a VR headset on, you could hold your phone up and look around the table. So if someone's talking, you can kind of move, and you're in augmented reality, be able to see around the table. Or if you have a headset on, you could feel like you're sitting in the middle of a table, surrounded by some of the world's best CHROs, and actually watch and be literally in the middle of the conversation. So that's kind of one of the things that we're working on. That's not in the pipe dream. That's happening in the next couple of months. And then the other thing is giving kind of VR tours of offices. So like we did an amazing tour of the Lego workplace design, and just kind of got a tour of Lego and how thoughtful they've been on every single detail. It was amazing, right? Totally. To see how they've designed their hybrid workplace. So imagine as an employee, it's quite nerve-wracking to go in for the first time. Yeah. You don't know the space, you don't know where you're going. So imagine being able to, as part of your onboarding, put a VR headset on and be able to walk through the workplace and see and get to feel the place you're going to. So that's something I'm excited to do as well. Plus, it's just an excuse to go to some really nice offices.
If you need any help holding the bag or something, you let me know. I would be in for that.
As well, yeah. I wonder if you're listening now, let us know what kind of use cases or things that you'd love to see in VR, because that would be nice as well. Yeah, definitely want to do more. So yeah, so good to see you in person. I know you're leaving tomorrow.
I am.
But thank you for coming. It was so nice to have you at the event, and I'm really happy that you've taken the time out to focus on Matt and where you're going, right? Like as you said, like during the pandemic, it was tough for everyone, but it kind of woke everyone up to say, is this really what I want to be doing? Is this aligned with my why, my purpose? For me and Shane and the team, it kind of highlighted that we already were going in the right direction. It kind of like went, keep doing this, keep pushing, keep going forward. And obviously we had to go virtual and do a few other things back in person again, which was really nice. But for others like yourself, it kind of gave you the opportunity to step back and say, actually, let me just take some time out, which is really nice as well. So we're looking forward to you updating us on what's happening next. For everyone listening, we're going to be doing these shows. We're just building the new TV studio. Some of you have seen the vlogs. That's going to be ready in a couple of weeks. And Matt and I are going to continue this week at work. Obviously, this is a bit of a different episode than normal. Normally, we'll be talking about what's happened this week. But Lego happened this week. We're meeting together this week. So that is a big... we don't get to do this often, someone to do this. But every week from next week, from when the studio's open, which will be the next few weeks, Matt and I are going to be doing the This Week at Work show where we chat about what's trending, what's happening, and keeping you up to date on the latest technology, tools, transformations, movers and shakers in the space. And we're also going to start having guests on, aren't we? I think that's one of the things that we like. I love talking to Matt, but you need more than just me and Matt. Well, it'd be nice to have some more diversity on our panel and more perspective as well. So we're going to start having some amazing guests. And if you're interested in joining us on the lives, let us know as well. We're always looking for different people to come on and share their perspectives. But we do this for you, and we appreciate you all joining us and tuning in. And end of make sure you hit the notification bell on Matt's LinkedIn profile, my LinkedIn profile. It's a little bell. It's a new feature on LinkedIn. They will just drop you a notification to say that we're live, because I'm sure, like me and Matt, you get a lot of notifications, a lot of things going on LinkedIn, so it's kind of easy to do that. Also follow our newsletters on LinkedIn. Follow us on LinkedIn. Not to sound arrogant, but Matt and I, we no longer have any LinkedIn friend requests available. So please follow us, because we can't actually accept you as a friend. It's a weird thing to say, but we are at that stage. And we'll see you again soon. But nice seeing you, my friend, and have a safe trip.
Thank you.
Back to Canada. Bye, everyone. See ya.